Hello and welcome back to another video on WD18, the Watford fan channel. We got a really special video today. Everyone seemed to love the video we did when Watford brought in Chris Wilder a couple of months ago, where we had a couple of fans on from Sheffield United and Middlesbrough discussing Chris Wilder's time at the club and his play style. So we thought, with the new Watford manager yet again, we'll try and do it again. This time it's Valérien Ismaël up next. And we've got Chris Hall from Albion Analysis here joining us. Chris, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not bad. Guys, if you do one of these for every new manager you have, you must get through some podcasts.
All right, Chris, don't start.
I was going to say, we could have had you on earlier as well for the...
I was going to say, where was my call for Slav? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true. Listen, I'm sure at some point we'll...
And Chris Wilder, the man we rejected as well, so who was all lined up to take the job, and we rejected him for Ismaël, which is an interesting wrinkle. There's almost like a bit of parallel between Albion and Watford going on.
Exactly. Football is a weird world, and I think we'll both agree that there are some absolutely massive summers coming up for both football clubs. And if you want to keep up to date with West Brom, I've left the link to Chris's podcast in the description down below. We're also hopefully going to be joined by Neil Ellis from Tykes TV, if he's able to join us at some point to discuss Ismaël's time at Barnsley, which I think it's fair to say was a lot better than his time at West Brom. I'm also joined, as always, by Charlie. Charlie, how are you, mate?
I'm good. I've just been speaking about Mikel Arteta and Roberto De Zerbi for the Coach's Voice, so going to get brought back down to earth with a bit of a Watford and West Brom chat. But no, always fascinated to hear from any guests that we have on. Valérien Ismaël is our new man, so I've done quite a bit of research on him, but I want to hear from Chris, who's going to know a lot more to find out about our new man. So we've had some good questions coming already. If anyone's got any questions they'd like to know about our new manager, just comment below and we'll try and put them to Chris.
Yeah, so exactly that, Charlie. If you do have a comment and a question, we will go through them after we've gone through a few things with Chris. First off, before we go into Ismaël, West Brom obviously finished outside the top six this season. A lot of troubles off the pitch, it seems. How did you reflect on West Brom season as a whole now that it's over?
I mean, in the end, relatively positively, because you always feel more positive about how you finish rather than how you started. Over the course of the season, we weren't good enough because our aim was to finish in the top six, as of course was yours, and Norwich and other teams that are disappointed that they don't finish in the top six. Inevitably, are going to look back on it and say it was a bad season. But really, we hampered ourselves with 17 games at the start of the season, 13 of them under Bruce, and we were bottom after 17 matches. So, I mean, that's just horrendous. It's a horrendous way to start a season. We should have got rid of Steve Bruce much, much earlier. Ron Gourlay, the chief executive, has a strong relationship with him. Whether that prevented him from pulling the trigger earlier, only he knows. But it certainly was a hesitancy that cost us, because when you look at how well Carlos Corberán did in the games that he was given, the 29 games that he was given in charge of Albion, I think it's 1.78 points per game, which, if that had been spread over a full 46-game season, would have had us finish fourth, I think. So I think realistically, it's a bit of a what-if season for us. And the main what-if is what if we'd got rid of Bruce earlier? What if we'd brought Carlos Corberán in? Even the one which is a bit of a killer for us is there was an international break just before we got rid of Steve Bruce. It was about 4 games before, and there was a lot of murmurings around the club that if we lost that game, we went away to Norwich. If we lost that game, Bruce would be gone. And we properly ground out a 1-1. We went 1 up, and then they equalised and they battered us a little bit. And I never want Albion to lose any game, but you can't help thinking if just one of those Norwich shots had gone in towards the end, we might have got rid of Bruce a few games earlier, and that might have just been the points we needed. But as I say, it's a season of what ifs for us.
I'm surprised Steve Bruce hasn't been mentioned on this channel before, but I'm
surprised you haven't hired him.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Neil's going to join in 5 minutes or so. So just did want to talk about Ismaël, but cast your mind, what was it? Start of last season when West Brom appointed him. What were your initial feelings towards that appointment when West Brom signed Ismaël from Barnsley?
that it was a panic appointment. Look, nothing against Valérien Ismaël, but we at the time we had a sporting director, Luke Dowling, who I think you had for a time. We had Luke Dowling. He completely lined up Wilder as the manager. This is as I understand it, but this is what all the papers and everything have reported. He lined up Wilder as manager, and then our owner heard that Wilder was difficult to work with in terms of his ownership, and had said stuff in the press about his ownership at Sheffield United. So the owner, who has been to basically 2 games the whole time he's owned the football club and has nothing to do with football matters whatsoever, suddenly out of nowhere steps in and gets involved in football matters and says, "You're not hiring Chris Wilder." Dowling pretty much ends up walking away over it, as I understand it, and then we're left without a sporting director, without any football people on the board whatsoever. And Zuki Ken, who is very much the right-hand man to our owner, but has absolutely no football background whatsoever, ends up hiring the manager, and he hires Valérien Ismaël. He pays a big chunk of change to get him out of his contract at Barnsley. I think I'm right in saying it was about 3 million quid, which huge amount of money for a championship club to pay for a manager. And look, I looked at it at the time and I thought, this is an appointment made by somebody who doesn't understand football, because Valérien Ismaël had done a great job at Barnsley, and he had done a job that they were going to be very happy with. But I've seen it before with West Brom. I've seen it with Tony Pulis way back when. Seen it with Bobby Gould. Regardless of result, I mean, Bobby Gould was awful, but Tony Pulis got us results to a certain point. But the Albion fans do not accept a certain style of play, and although Ismaël was much more attacking than Pulis, I knew it was going to be an awful lot of direct football. I knew it was going to be quite a physical-based game. And I just knew as soon as the results started to turn, the Albion fans would rebel. And anybody who understood the club, who understood horses for courses and getting the right manager, the right fit for the club, would just never in a million years have hired Valérien Ismaël. But unfortunately, the man doing the hiring just didn't have the requisite knowledge to be making that decision. He picked the shiny of managers at the time out of the championship. He saw a guy who'd done a good job on a small budget at Barnsley and thought he could just replicate it at West Brom. And as we all know, football doesn't work like that.
Interesting, yeah. So didn't seem to go swimmingly at West Brom, but a club where it did go well for him is at Barnsley. We're joined by Neil from Tykes TV. Neil, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, mate?
No problem. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Thanks to yourselves.
All good, thank you. All good. Before talking about Ismaël, I'll hand that over to Charlie to ask the first question. But obviously, Barnsley are in the playoffs at the moment in League One. How's that going so far? How did the first game go? And are you confident going into the second leg?
Yeah, well, as probably all football fans know, like, it was a disastrous season. We even ended up bottom of league underneath Derby County and they had a minus 21 point deduction, so it won't great when you finish below that. But yeah, Michael Duff came in, said at the time that the key signing for Barnsley would be the manager or the coach, as people like to call him. But not only has he set standards, he's set a belief in the players and the backroom staff, and players have gone. You know, Woodrow, Morris, Styles went out on loan, Elliott's gone to Huddersfield, mainly for wage bill. You know, any club that gets relegated, you're going to have a financial hit. He's come in, he's made some signings, questionable at times, thinking free signings, free transfers, but turned out, you know, ideal. James Norwood knows what it takes in lower half of leagues. You've got Luke O'Connell coming from, you know, obscurity from Celtic because he didn't work out for him up there. Mads Anderson first season as a captain, and he's got player at season, so a lot of positives. Going into playoffs as season went on, personally, I think did we overachieve? Yeah, we possibly have in his first season under Duff. Expectations were high, but you've got to play the game and play the opposition, and we struggled against, no disrespect to such as your Morecambes and Fleetwoods, taking on a team what allow you to play, such as your Ipswich, you know, your Sheffield Wednesdays and your Plymouths. They like to play football, so it encourages people. First game, at Bolton in semi-final, to be honest, I thought we could have come away with a win if we took his chances better. We pressed a lot, didn't allow Bolton to settle into the game as such. And again, this season, we played them 3 times in League and FA Cup, 1 drawn and lost. So we kind of knew what to expect. I think Bolton did as well. You're not up in playoffs and back top end of the season is for note kind of thing, you know what I mean? And I'm just doing a preview earlier on with some guys on the channel. And it was interesting to get debate is that because we went away at first leg and we come to Oakwell 1-1 with a lot more expectations. If it had been different, if it had been going to Bolton's ground 1-1, it might have been a bit different with crowd. So this season, I'm happy. I'm compared to last season all day long. My concern is, like any other fans, is that if we do, and I'm like, looking crystal ball too far in front, but I think any club that does get promoted Championship, have they got the finances to invest and strengthen just to stop in that league, let alone like build on it, just stop him there. But then I can look at Sunderland and take, fair enough, a bigger fan base, but they got promoted and then they're in playoffs at Championship. So it just goes to show what can be done on beliefs and morals.
Yeah, definitely. And before we talk to you about your time with Valérien Ismaël, make sure if you do want to have a look at Neil's playoff content, we've left a link to Tykes TV in the description, so make sure to check that out.
I appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Before you came on, Neil, Chris was hinted at Valérien Ismaël's type of football. So we might be getting a different tone from yourself, but talk a bit about that. Am I right in saying Ismaël came in after Gerhard Struber?
Yeah.
What was he like when he first came in? How would you describe his philosophy, his principles?
He plays very attractive football, doesn't he, Ismaël?
It gives you a bad neck.
The thing was, it was a bit frustrating for me because it was COVID times when it happened, and I wanted to see what he was like with the crowd behind him. But yeah, Struber, I think Struber got us as far as where he could do, and Struber were very attacking. He liked to play football front and back. And with Barnsley, not Barcelona, you've got to have them kind of players to do that in this league. And he had goodwill and intention. He wanted strengthening. He wanted help. He wanted experience and football knowledge. You won't get it with just getting young kids. And I kind of get the database where it's like, get a young player, improve them, sell them for cash, not a problem. But you can't just play the team like that. You might as well be playing at under 23 league. So, unfortunately, Struber, a bit like Stendhal, he were a crowd favourite. If you could see where we wanted to do, but not getting back in. Ismaël, manager from where did this come from? I don't think he were even in Betton or on Lips and many Barnsley, Of course, you start Googling, you start looking, what's he done? He's got a good record as a player at Crystal Palace and all that kind of stuff, Ismaël. So when he came in, the brand of football where I was watching on, online platforms, because we've got past for I follow them back with COVID, it was, what is this? It was just like watching a tennis. It was like literally, like you say, I think if I'd have been sat in stand while I was sitting punching behind goal, I'd have just been constantly looking up in air. His remit was to come into the club, just keep us in league, which he did do, but full credit, he did do. But then again, he went on this unbelievable run, which nobody saw coming, and he goes on to playoffs, and it was like, okay. But then you got to a stage where it was, I was doing previews and after-match thoughts, and I was calling it out. It's like, who's man at match? I couldn't pick a man at match out, if I'm being honest. Oh, we'll get him because he scored a goal. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for a man at match who was actually controlling play. But because it was like literally all fit and get it, and right from kickoff, right from start of the game, it will get ball and just boot it into touch. Boot it into touch, possession game, you're up in their half, and it's coming back, you're inviting pressure. It wanted a brand of football I liked, but then you get a small other end saying, yeah, but we're in playoffs. Are you willing to compromise that? Playing all fit and lump it, but then when we started losing it and teams got wise to it, oh, we don't want this, we want to go back to normal way of Barnsley. Whoa, hold on a minute, you can't have best of both. But it wasn't the kind of brand of football I got. But then rumours started going about that Crystal Palace wanted a manager, and it will gain linked by me. And if I'm being honest, potentially the Barnsley fans would be saying, "What's his get out clause? £2 million, let him go," because they didn't want to come back to Oakwell. I wanted to come back to Oakwell and see a season under Ishmael. I don't think it'd have worked because it was clear to see. Sorry, when you watch it online, you could hear him shouting in an empty stadium, and you could hear the players reacting to him. I don't think they'd have reacted well, and I don't think the crowd would have reacted to him. It's kind of brand of football.
It's interesting what you say there, Neil, because that's exactly how it was for Albion. I mean, Charlie, you said before he wasn't successful at Albion. I challenge that. I mean, we were fifth when he got fired. He was unbeaten for his first 10 games. Yeah, results were on the turn. So yeah, Tommy's just said that. Yeah, we were fifth, Tommy. However, just for a little bit of context, it is worth saying that. We were on a bad run as well at that point. We'd won at the point at which he got fired after a game with Millwall. We had won 1 in 7, and it wasn't going particularly brilliantly, but it was the brand of football that cost him his job, not the results. If the results genuinely weren't that bad, we'd had a dip in form. But like I say, we'd started off like an absolute train. We won 4 of the first 5. We then had a few draws and then backed it up with a couple of wins before Stoke finally beat us in our 11th game. So we were actually doing really well. A few things counted against Val. I mean, first of all, he was unlucky in the sense that he wanted DK that summer. And the club, Orlando, weren't particularly keen on letting him go. And the club weren't prepared to pay enough money to get him out of his Orlando deal at that point. So he ended up with Jordan Hugill, who I have to choose my words carefully with Jordan Hugill because he went and scored twice against us for Rotherham earlier this season. But when he was an Albion shirt, he couldn't hit a cow's backside with a banjo. I
think I saw a video of him having a bit of banter with the West Brom fans.
Yeah. He battered us. He absolutely he gave it all that. He was doing 3 fingers for the 3 goals behind his back. He killed us. I was in the stands at Rotherham. He had the last laugh. Fair play to him, but he was dreadful at the Albion. And the thing that always got thrown at Val was Val kept on about how the expected goals was good. We were top of all the expected goals tables because we were rock solid at the back, pretty much, and we were creating chances. Granted, through a lot of long balls, a lot of crosses into the box, a lot of Darnell Furlong long throws. But the problem is, we either our strikers were someone like Carlan Grant, who was just not physical and wasn't putting himself into those areas to get on the end of those balls, or Jordan Hugill, who was just missing. I mean, Neil, you'll remember the one he missed at Barnsley. I mean, what's he, 3 yards out? It's honestly one of the worst misses you will ever see in your entire life. And so to that extent, he was a little bit unlucky. The Albion fans weren't putting up with the brand of football, but the players were buying into it to a certain extent. And then he made a couple of fundamental mistakes at the Albion. And one of the problems with Val, from what I can understand, is the guy could have an argument in an empty room. And he dropped Semi Ajayi seemingly inexplicably after an international break. I don't know whether he was unhappy that he went away with Nigeria or what it was, but Semi came back from international break and just didn't play. That was it. Nowhere near the team. And then the one that seemed to really kill him was we played Cardiff at home. We drew 1-1. There was a blatant penalty not given in the last minute. And at the full-time whistle, Val has stormed onto the pitch to have a massive go at the referee, anybody that's going. Sam Johnston has got involved, ended up having an altercation with Aidan Flint and got himself sent off. Banned for 3 games. At the end of the 3 games, and we'd had a lot of sendings off that season. And every time a senior player had got sent off, as soon as his ban was over, Val put him back in the team. And when Johnston's ban was over, he didn't put Johnston back in. And from what I hear, again, all just on the grapevine, that Sam did not take kindly to it. Sam was a fairly popular lad in the dressing room that lost Val a lot of friends in the dressing room. And I think he'd lost the fans. he seemed to have lost the dressing room a great deal. Yes, as your listener said, we were fifth, but things were just on the turn. And the other thing that counted against him, sorry, and I'll stop my monologue in a second, but Neil, one of the big things that you guys had that season under COVID was you had 5 subs. And one thing you'll notice about Val is he plays 3 up top, and he likes to change all 3 of them on the hour. And he couldn't do that at Albion because we went back to 3 subs for that one season before the 5 subs were reintroduced this year. And because he plays this high-intensity game, he does like to swap all 3 on the hour, and he couldn't do it at Albion, whereas he could do it at Barnsley. And I think that hurt his game as well.
Interesting. And
Neil,
Chris,
I just wanted to ask, obviously, the achievements he'd done at Barnsley was pretty remarkable, from taking you from relegation candidates into the playoffs. We've all talked about his style of football, but as a fan, was it enjoyable at all? Like, we're seeing, if you look at the stats and the chance creation and how direct he is, could you enjoy it at all? Because we are on a Watford channel, and I'm trying to get some fans excited, and at the moment,
you will, it's like a double-edged sword, really. Are you willing to compromise a lot of attacking options and of a brand of football that you want to watch week in, week out? And when he came into, I mean, I won't say we've been overblessed with attacking side of the football. Like I said, with Barnsley, we're not Barcelona. But what the fans like to see is that the players getting stuck into midfield. Our midfield more or less went non-existent. Yeah, as soon as Ismaël went via, he took Mowat from Barnsley to West Brom. He had Daryl Dike at Barnsley. He took him. He knew him. He knew what he could bring to West Brom. He knew what they wanted to get out of him. So he obviously West Brom got more finances than what Barnsley have. So Mowat went on a free. Daryl Dike went. So I'm thinking I can see it working in a way that the brand of football is not going to change. And the thing what got us is that we were pressing with side intensity, and like what Chris just said, the 5 substitutes really exploited to ilt. We didn't know from one week to the next what his front 3 were going to be, because you like playing 1 up at top and 2 dropping off. So it played Dike up front, Woodrow and Chaplin, or Woodrow and Adebayo. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going off here? It's a winning side. What are you changing it for? But because he had the luxury of changing and chopping, that's what we were doing. Patrick Smith were coming in. Who's Patrick Smith? No, but because he run and closed and pressed, that's fine. But his goal ratio wasn't great. Nobody could close and press down and cross a ball. That were it. And we got exploited so many times. So as teams started sussing us out, they were doing the same to us. We were pressing up at halfway line. They were playing ball just over, and their strikers were running straight through. As soon as that's done it, like, now you can see what's happening. They're doing their own work. They're picking our kind of faults. But it never really changed. It never went to like a back four or shore it up. It replaced like for like. Very, very reluctant. It was stubborn, but in his own beliefs. Well, I've got where we are now, so I'm sticking to it. It's worked. That's fine. But we draw the line and say, you need to look at a plan B here, because they're doing their own work. We haven't got an option. It will just play that way.
Yeah, I mean, just to say on that, in reasons to be excited, positives were, I mean, certainly early on in that season, sometimes some of the frustration with the Albion fans under Corberan is that we start games off and we knock it across the back 4. We play from one full back to the next, and then we go back again, and we wait for the opportunity. You won't see any of that under Val. You'll get the ball in the box from the first minute. You'll send your centre forward, and your ball will go in the box. And do you know what? If teams aren't ready for it, we raced into a 3-0 lead against Luton. We battered Sheffield United 4-0 at the Hawthorns. As Neil said, the problem is, as the season goes on, teams almost steel themselves for a game against Valérien Ismaël's 11, because they know that if they don't start from the first minute, they're probably going to be out of the game before they've even realised the first whistle's gone. And that's what we did to teams early on in the season. We raced into some leads against teams. The other thing you'll see is you will see some spectacular goals, because one thing that he does is when he puts these balls into the box, he makes sure he's got men around the edge of the penalty area. I mean, we scored some absolute worldies. Moet scored a couple of absolute wonder goals from range, because they get the knockdowns. He makes sure people are there. If the ball gets headed clear from the balls into the box, he makes sure people are there picking up the pieces to hit it. So you'll see some stunning goals, and I tell you what, you will. Where teams aren't ready for it or aren't up for the fight, you will see teams off inside the first 20 minutes because that's what he does. But as the season goes on, he won't change unless he's completely changed his personality. He won't change, and teams will get a little bit more wise to it. The other thing that you will need, and I don't know enough about Watford to say this, but what Neil was saying there about it got found out defensively, we didn't. But that was largely down to the fact that we had a tremendous centre-back in Matt Clark. The only time we got found out really was when Matt Clark was out injured. And we also had a goalkeeper in Sam Johnston who, apart from an absolute horror moment at Blackburn where he's come out and missed his kick, and one against QPR, I think it was, where he really should have come out and he bottled it and went back into his goal. He actually did some unbelievable sweeper keepering. And you need a goalkeeper who's decent with his feet, because Neil's right. You leave so much space. Your line is so high. You leave so much space behind your line that if your keeper will play on the edge of his own penalty area, and he's got to be ready to go as soon as that ball goes over his box. So whether it's Backman in goal or whoever for you, he's got to be ready to go out and clear those balls. And you need a good centre half who, like Matt Clark, who just. It takes a really good ball to get past Matt Clark, and you need that. So, but I would say positives. You will see some thrilling games, especially early on in the season. You will blow some teams. You'll blow some teams away. And the other thing is, if you get ahead in games, he will be defensively solid, and you'll be hard to beat. But tactically, unless he's got a little bit more in his locker than he had at the Albion, I think as the season goes on, you'll probably get a little bit more found out.
Interesting. I'm going to come on to recruitment in a minute. As Charlotte says here, for example, what sort of players do you think Ismaël will want to bring into Watford? We've a lot of questions about potential signings and types of signings. Before I do that, Charlie, from what you've heard so far, how are you feeling? Confident? We know the problems at Watford at the moment. Worried?
I wanted to ask you. Look, one thing that Watford have been crying out for ages is an identity. And for the guys that have joined that probably hasn't seen a lot of Watford, obviously they know about the chopping and changing. We haven't been able to have a consistent style of play for a while, and we've just wanted something that we can believe in. They've got this, they've appointed him early, so he's got a full summer to sort it out. The guys probably don't know, but the guy who's appointed him is a guy called Ben Manga, who's come from Germany. He used to be Frankfurt's chief scout, and he's highly regarded. So we're hoping he's had that decision, and we're hoping that he's going to get a serious period of time to implement his style, recruit his players. From what I'm gathering, is exactly what the guys are saying in terms of the type of football. It can be exhilarating. I am worried about when it does go wrong, and I do think that the mentality of some of our players, it could be a disaster at points. But it's just, you're going to have to wait and see. But I do like the idea of exciting football. I do like the idea of blowing teams away early, but I do have a lot of concerns.
I'll take an early 3-0 lead against Luton.
Yeah. We did try and blow it though. We only won that game 3-2. Just in terms of what you were saying though, there, Charlie, it kind of comes on to your point that your listener asked about recruitment. You say about wanting an identity. The problem with Ismaël is that this style of play has got to be your identity for quite a long time now, because this is the problem we've found. His style of football is so specialised. He ships out any creative central midfielders at all. He got rid of Pereira so fast. He didn't want to know about Romain Sawyers, people like that. And he will build a side that, to be honest, nobody else can really do anything with, because it will be, as I say, unless a leopard has changed its spots, it will be 3 centre halves and a really high line. Your width will come from your fullbacks. He will have 2 central midfielders whose, to be honest, their job is very little other than to win the ball back and be on the edge of the box for anything that drops. And then he will have inverted wingers whose job it is, when the one on the other side has got it, putting it in the box to make sure they get in the box, along with a big centre forward. And no, I have not seen another manager who plays the way Valérien Ismaël does to that extent. And the problem is, and I know we joked about this at the start, but I don't mean this disrespectfully to Watford, but if you do revert to type and sack him early after giving him a summer to build his squad, nobody else will be able to do anything with it.
Yeah, one thing that we're kind of hoping is, Graham Taylor's obviously our greatest ever manager, and some of the criticism that he used to get was them being a hoofball team and a long ball team, and he was very direct, and he said, look, I want to create chances, I want to excite the fans. So we're hoping for some kind of connection there. But Neil, one question I wanted to ask you was about, you may not want to answer this, but your players at the moment, do you think there's any that Valérien might be looking at that he might want to poach? Maybe the
of the band players, past president, all play for Ismaël, what do you think they'll go for? To be fair,
there's one at us he'll go for.
Yeah,
we'll come on to.
To be fair, I don't think he will go. I can't see him going for a current player, because it's a completely different style what Duff's got him playing. The only player I can see,
Anderson,
and I don't think he would. I think he'd want a more commanding centre back, and Anderson's still young and pretty and still knowing. I could see him going for someone like a Callum Styles, who knew under Ismaël. He got loaned out to Millwall on left wing, because what Ismaël will be looking for is an high fitness press, and he'd be looking for a big, tall centre forward up front like DK. He'd be looking for someone like a Callum Britton and Styles, your wing backs, just a bomb forward.
his Styles just on loan at Millwall.
Sorry?
His Styles just on loan at Millwall.
Yeah, it comes back to his back at Barnsley now. So again, I could see him going for Ismaël. Will be looking for, like Chris just said, via midfield. Not really looking for any creative midfielders, because your midfielders via to mop up, win ball, hit it out to your wing backs to bomb forward and get a crossing ball, and people to mop up on outside at box.
To me, that sounds like Charlotte Zazzera, Imran Loser could be in trouble for us, I think.
Yeah, and I think Ismaël's way of football is to get it front and back, press up, get out to your wing backs, bomb forward, get it crossed in box. If it comes out, every shot at goal. I mean, like you listening to Sevilla, Chris, we've had some some cracking shots, but we've also seen them go wide as well. But the ball's here to be it, so we'll have a pop, because there's no else to drop back on. There's no midfield to drop back on. There's no. It's literally centre backs playing that far up, is hitting ball. So we're having Brad Collins coming literally near halfway line, sweeper keeper to hit it up, and if he's missed it, you're in no man's land and you're in trouble. And again, I can't see him going back to Barnsley for any player to play that kind of way, because what Duff's got him playing now is a pass attacking press football, but it's not a long ball direct and hit it up front kind of thing.
Chris, a name that a lot of Watford fans are talking about at the moment is, as Rio says here, Alex Mowat. A lot of comments about him in the chat and also on Twitter. In a lot of talk about him on Twitter as well. Do you think that Valérien Ismaël will be able to bring him into Watford? And also, what sort of player is he? That's a question for both of you, by the way.
I mean, yeah, I think he'd be able to bring him in, and I think he will want to, because he's very much. He embodies Val on the pitch. He does carry out Val's instructions, and he understands what he wants. He went straight and got him. I think he was his first signing at the Albion. He was the first name on his list. I think that I do think you'll try and get him. He shouldn't be particularly difficult to get either. We've obviously loaned him out to Middlesbrough on loan this season, and he's only got 1 year left on his deal. And I can't imagine he's not had a particularly good time at Albion, so I can't for the life of me think that Mowatt will have any inclination to sign another deal. So we might as well cash in on him whilst he's got a year left, and we might be able to get a few quid out of you for him, especially as he's doing all right for Middlesbrough at the moment. I saw him in the playoffs the other day and actually had a pretty good game. So maybe this, I think it would be win-win for everybody, to be honest. Mowatt gets to go and play for a manager that he likes and likes him. He gets out of what has been a bit of a nightmare move to West Brom, and Albion get money for a player that we practically couldn't give away last summer. In terms of what is Mowatt, he's got some good ability. He fizzes his passes in. He's, as I say, he's got a heck of a shot on him, as Neil says. Some of them fly over, but free kicks as well. He's got good energy, but he's not got pace. And he is a potential red card as well. He doesn't shirk a challenge, even if he's going to get there a yard late. So he will pick up some yellows. He'll probably get sent off as well. But I mean, look, he's a likable guy. It's just the problem at Albion was he was in central midfield with the likes of Jake Livermore, who were equally as immobile, and it got really, really exposed. I don't know whether he had this at Barnsley, but he needs legs alongside him, and he didn't have that at Albion.
Yeah, while they were at Barnsley, Mowatt, he had a young, he had a few options. He had Herbie Kane playing alongside him, and he dropped on Palmer, a young kid, and he was basically there to do what running about for him, just give Mowatt ball. And it's like what you just said, Via, is that Mowatt's good at carrying out instructions. He understands and he takes on board what Ismaël did, and he was captain at Barnsley. And he kind of knew what it took. Like you said, high intensity. His first game for Barnsley, got sent off, straight red, first game, and that was it. He'd never played. He went out on loan to Oxford, came back, didn't really ever look in under Struber, but when Ismaël came in, he must have saw something new in training, and he was made captain. He was straight away. So obviously, Ismaël seen something in him what he liked. He was first signing, what went, and like I say, it was just ironic that he went for Daryl DK because he knew the player that he could get a tune out and what worked for him at a club, and you will find that. I mean, wherever he's been, managing abroad, they'll probably know players there, and I think, do you know what? They can understand that. I'm out fetch fees in, but if you're openly asking me like now, would he come in for any player at Barnsley? I can't see it because it's a completely different style. And like we've touched on earlier, it's a different. You can play it long ball, I get that, but the way Ismaël plays it, it's completely different. It's like an high press, an high line, and I think any Barnsley player to go via, it'd be, whoa, what's all this like? What's he expecting him in right now? I haven't played this brand before, and it'll probably take a month or two to get into it, understanding.
Interesting. Neil and Chris, thank you both so much for your time today. Before we wrap up, just a quick question about how you both see Watford's season going next year. We know about the managerial changes at Watford. Do you see him lasting? Do you see him building an identity?
I mean, sorry. I mean, look, again, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it's hard to predict any Watford manager to last terribly long, isn't it? I think it's a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know your fans. If your fans are going to be accepting of that style of football, maybe because like I say, he had us fifth in the league. It's also the other question is are your players going to buy into it? Because Neil's absolutely bang on the money. One of the reasons he brings Mowatt in is because Mowatt buys into his style of play. The reason he brought DK into Albion, and things could have been so much different if DK hadn't got injured in his first start for Albion.
Quick one on that, Chris. I wanted to ask: do you think there's any chance he could go back in for DK? I know
he's injured. He couldn't pass a medical at the moment, mate. He's going to be injured all summer. I think if DK wasn't injured, I think he'd 100% be going for him. But there's no way nobody's going to sign off signing an injured player who hasn't even rehabbed yet. It'd be crazy. But yeah, I think he needs a certain certain type of player who's going to buy into it, and they are short on the ground. Like I say, he fell out with players left, right, and centre at the Albion. In the end, Semi got bombed out, Snodgrass got bombed out, as I say, Johnston as well. I mean, Jordan Hugel did an interview the other week where he said he went and knocked on the gaffer's door and said to him, "Look, you've brought me in on loan. When am I going to start playing?" I'll paraphrase because I'll take the language out of it, but apparently the answer he got was, when the weather's bad and the pitches are awful, that's when I'll play you. And Hugel walked out of his office going, he said he bumped into one of the lads and they said, "How did that go?" He goes, "I think he just called me a pub player." The guy just, I don't know him. I've never met him, but it appears from the outside looking in like he has very little man management skills, apart from with his very tight inner circle of players who really, really get him and like him. So I think it could work. I think it'll be exciting for a period of time, but with Val, I think it's always a tinderbox and some matches. It's ready to go up.
Can I just have squeeze in one more question? Neil, what's he like with the young players? We've got some young players who we'd like to see blood into the team. Any chance of that?
If he's got no other option, but he'd prefer to bring his own players in, it depends what them players would be like. If them players don't meet up to his expectations and the style of brand he wants to play, it won't entertain him. He'll stick to what he knows. But he didn't really fetch any young players through apart from Palmer, and that's because he had no other option, but no other midfielder like him. Other player were out on loan. So again, he'll use the players that he knows will do a job. If you don't fit in, then you know, good. I'll go and look elsewhere. And just going back to Watford on what to expect and what think you're going to do. And again, it's like what Chris said, is that be prepared for a change in style of football, and all being well, it works. It works off for you, and I hope you step up. My concern is for Watford is that how long, given past with managers and with turnovers and change and stuff like that, it might be a question for both Sam and Charlie. I don't know if I flip it back to you. Is that how long would you see? If say you get off to a cracking start for this 2 months. And then you think, yeah, do you know what? Neil and Chris don't know what we're on about, and we're happy we're up in top 10. But then if it starts to peter off, how would the Watford fan base think then? Is like, I'm not putting up with this kind of football, or do you think it's going to be a quick, do you know what, come December, we need to be looking elsewhere for another manager?
I think that's more a thing. The Watford board, I think, would run out of patience at the first sign of trouble.
Right.
We've seen already they're not scared to change things. If we win our first 10 under Ismail and lose 5 in a row after that, they'll change the manager. They're not afraid to do that, and they'll be wise to the fact that things went sour quickly, particularly at West Brom and at Besiktas as well. So I think that they might go, thank you for everything in those first 10 games or whatever. But the first sign of trouble, they'll get rid of him before things get even worse. Not sure what you think about that, Charlie.
I think the fans are desperate. Our biggest goal next season is for a manager to last more than 6 months. So, but I think what we spoke today, if we're completely honest, could end one way. But Sam, just to wrap up, how are you generally feeling after kind of the insight from Chris and Neil?
I won't lie to you here. I mean, I was sort of 50-50, as I've said on a previous video. I think there are some really good things about this appointment and some really negative things as well. But I can't lie, after this video, I'm feeling slightly worse, I would say. I think this is only a recipe for disaster, it seems. As Craig says here, this sounds like another mistake in the managerial merry-go-round. Jim goes, it's not looking good. I don't trust us to recruit according to a style. I don't think our players will respond well to what appears to be not the best man management. And I think the Pozzos will run out of patience quickly as well. But obviously, I would love to be proved wrong. And here's hoping that we'll be sat here this time next year discussing how we think Valérien Ismaël will get on with Watford in the Premier League. But Neil and Chris, thank you so much for coming on today.
Appreciate it.
pleasure
No
speaking
problem.
to you both. Neil, best of luck with your playoff second leg. And Chris, good luck with what appears to be a busy summer at West Brom. Make sure to check out both of their channels in the description down below. Charlie, thank you as always.
I'm going off to cry.
Not looking good for next season, but we hope it was an informative video. And we hope that everyone really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. And we'll be back soon for another video here on WD18 Up the Hornets.